Traditionally, whenever a Kenyan president has gone abroad, they've usually received a very warm welcome from Kenyans in the diaspora. Even when they do not quite agree with the policies of that president, they have decided to keep dormez out of it. Over the years, they have warmly received past Kenyan presidents. Okay, Jomo Kenyatta never traveled much, in fact, because of his fear for flying. Daniel Arap Moi, despite his draconian ways, was always very well received in the US, in the UK. Virtually anywhere in the world Kenyan presidents have gone, where Kenyans are. But yesterday, President Uhuru Kenyatta received a very hostile reception in the UK. A group of Kenyans picketed and staged a demonstration with placards protesting some of the draconian things the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta has been responsible for. Placards that said things like follow rule of law, once born a Kenyan, always a Kenyan, and so on and so forth. Of course, the last placard was in reference to the issue of Miguna Miguna, which still leaves a very bitter taste in the mouth for most Kenyans, just remembering how that son of Kenya was treated. Deported from their own country of birth over so-called technicalities. Now, it's very interesting in recent times, it has been unearthed that even as Miguna arrived at the airport, and even as the government pretended to be facilitating and doing everything in their power to admit him into the country, a return ticket had already been purchased for him. Arrangements were well underway to get him out of Kenya on the first flight back from where he came from. Now, this reception surprised some Kenyans, including one leading daily newspaper in Kenya, which has carried the story very prominently, as if in shock. Of course, their thinking is that there's currently a deal, a handshake, between opposition leader Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. And this deal is supposed to have brought relative peace on our local political scene. Therefore, according to the thinking of these Kenyans, such a scene as what happened in the United Kingdom should not have happened, should not have been expected to happen. Now, we know that Kenyans in the diaspora are great influencers of Kenyan politics currently. Indeed, we can say they are at the forefront in a way they have never been before in the history of our country. There is a very major reawakening politically of Kenyans in the diaspora. The attitude before, over the years, has been these Kenyans who are out of the country, and most of them live fairly comfortable lives. Indeed, very comfortable lives when you compare them to some of their kin, and some of their fellow Kenyans back here in Kenya. They live very comfortable lives. They don't face the kind of hardships that regular, ordinary Kenyans face. And therefore, their attitude has been lethargy towards Kenyan politics and towards the plight of their fellow Kenyans they left back home. In the past, many have completely ignored political developments in Kenya. But this has changed very dramatically. In the run-up to the August 8th elections, and especially after those elections, and the very dramatic nullification of the presidential elections of August 8th, there's been a very, very major awakening politically amongst Kenyans right across the world. Many of these Kenyans are very actively involved in fighting for a better Kenya. And a shockingly high number of them are members of the NRM, National Revolutionary Movement, formerly National Resistance Movement. Indeed, General Miguna Miguna has been quick to claim credit for what happened to the president in the UK. On his page, he has said, he has referred to the people who are picketing as NRM soldiers. Actually, those protests we saw in the UK are a reflection of what a lot of Kenyans are still feeling, even despite the mysterious handshake. More so, because General Miguna's brutal eviction from the country actually took place after that handshake. That very draconian reaction by the government took place after the handshake. Yeah, the Jubilee government was still able to rear its very ugly fangs, yeah, after the handshake. And one Miguna got scratched very badly, or shall we say bitten very badly. Because the truth of the matter is that very many Kenyans cannot get it out of their minds that actually a Kenyan-born, Kenyan citizen, indigenous Kenyan was dragged and put on an aircraft and flown out of the country, as the government claimed that he did not even enter Kenya. Yeah, he was at the airport in no man's land. He performed the vicious, brutal Lunga Lunga dance in no man's land. He was not in Kenya. This is the pain and this is the emotion that Kenyans are feeling long after the handshake. Now we're going on a short commercial break. When we come back, we shall discuss this further and introduce something very interesting. Don't go away. Now, one of the things that has made it very difficult for Kenyans to forget is the fact that there were some rather dramatic deaths of children, yeah, in activities related to the electioneering period. There were very brutal and indeed unnecessary deaths of ordinary Kenyans, yeah, and Kenyans just can't get that out of their mind, especially the death of the IEBC IT guru, the late Chris Musando. Nobody has been brought to justice for those very inhuman deaths. And the way it looks at the moment, it's highly unlikely that anybody will be charged. And therefore, it's quite understandable why Kenyans are very reluctant or are not able to accept and move on. Now, I want us to look at something that many analysts have not really looked at. Okay? Indeed, I've been amazed at some of the analysis of our political situation, which seem to assume that politicians are robots. Yeah, they have no feelings. Things that happen have zero effect on them and their lives. Actually, there's no way you can analyze politics accurately without considering the human factor. Yeah, because the human factor is bang in the middle of politics. Because politics is practiced by human beings. Yeah, and there's human nature involved. And what I want us to discuss briefly is the toll it has taken on Uhuru Kenyatta as a human being. Now, when Uhuru Kenyatta started on his first term as President of the Republic of Kenya, it was clear that he was very determined to be liked. But leading to the August 8th elections, and especially after, it seemed that he changed, yeah, or rather his handlers were very determined that he changes to being feared instead of being liked. This was probably necessary to make it possible for the Jubilee government to pull off the very major and massive fraud against the Kenyan people. Now, the truth is you need a very strong heart, yeah, to take in all the president has had to take in, yeah, leading up to the August 8th elections and after. You need to be naturally a bad guy, yeah, a brutal, ruthless guy, yeah, and we know from the president's character that he's not like that. Actually, President Uhuru Kenyatta is a nice guy, has always been. Now, the truth is, being a leader anywhere always takes its toll on nice guys. Yeah, it does. It's not only in Kenya, anywhere in the world. Even in any company, in any large organization, being a leader will always have its impact. Very, very huge negative impact on nice guys. Because to lead effectively, you can't do it as a nice guy. You can't do it making nice guy decisions. No, there's no way it can work like that. Now, between 2013 and 2016, the president was very lucky because some of the impact was cushioned by his deputy, DP William Ruto. Between 2013 and 2016, they were really co-presidents. Now, it's absolutely fascinating that in regard to this nice guy factor, the presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta and the presidency of Daniel Toroitich arap Moi are very, very similar. When Moi took over the presidency after the death of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta in 1978, August 1978 to be exact, it took him some time to fit into those very big shoes. But even after he settled into office, it was clear that Moi was a nice guy president. Of course, everything changed after the failed 1982 coup. Okay? After the failed 1982 coup, a new Moi emerged, a very iron-fisted dictator. Yeah? Now, there's something here very interesting that I observed personally. Okay? I saw Moi, I was still in school those days, I saw Moi shortly after that failed coup of 1982. I happened to be involved in a function where I came very close to the president. Now, 2 years later, again by a stroke of fate, I was involved with a company which was involved in a school, and when we went to deliver our wares at that school, the president came visiting. And again, I was able to observe him at very close proximity. Yeah. Now, I was totally shocked at how the president had aged in just 2 short years. He was definitely not the young, vibrant person I had seen shortly after the coup in 1982. The point I want to illustrate here is the human being is wired in such a way that when they have to behave in ways which are contrary to their real character, it has a devastating effect on them. That is just human nature. Now, maybe it's my eyes deceiving me, but after Moi left power in 2002, again he started aging very slowly. Yeah, maybe I was seeing things. But the bottom line is that the body very loudly protests when you do things which are contrary to your own nature, your own inborn nature. And so you can imagine the impact, the activities that have taken place, the activities and events between August 8th, 2017 to date. You can imagine what impact they've had on the president as a person. Now, one of the interesting things is that opposition leader Raila Odinga is a very compassionate person. Many people don't know this. I'll just give you a quick example. One of the reasons why Raila did not protest very strongly against Mwai Kibaki during the Grand Coalition government was because of Mwai Kibaki's health. It was a secret those days, but now it has become more in the public domain. Kibaki was a very sick man, still is quite a sick man. Now, there's some politicians who will not hesitate to kick you in the butt or even to kick you in the pit of your stomach when you're on the ground. Not Raila. And so my point is, I strongly suspect that one of the things that pushed Raila over the edge quickly into a handshake was that in many ways he must have pitied the situation of Uhuru Kenyatta, President Uhuru Kenyatta. Don't get me wrong, I'm not making any excuses for Uhuru Kenyatta. All I'm saying is that human beings are wired in a certain way that you cannot change because you're not the maker. That's just how we are as human beings. Now, this fact cannot be ignored in analyzing our politics going forward. In other words, this will definitely have an impact on the president as he looks at preparing his legacy ahead of leaving power in 2022. But of course, the Kenyan public will be unforgiving. Yeah, they don't want to know. Indeed, I'm expecting a lot of barbs from this recording I've made on this subject. I expect comments like, hey, Chris, when you've become a supporter of Uhuru Kenyatta? Chris, how much have you been paid? Chris, has there been a handshake between you and Uhuru? Nothing like that, I assure you. Absolutely nothing like that. However, just remember one small thing. There are some things which may appear very minute, insignificant, very small, but they are to do with human nature. And as petty and irrelevant as these things may appear, the truth is, human nature is such that they end up making a very huge contribution and indeed a very huge impact on the decision a man makes. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.